This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA, fight.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show Network, with your hosts, Jake Merrifield, Bill Shirley, Jamaal Artis, and Mike Regalado, bringing you anything and everything UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, and welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Merrifield, and I'm here by myself for now, although Mike Regalado will be joining us soon to talk about the Colorado game and the upcoming Arizona game in Tucson. It will eventually be an MJ edition.
The ceiling is the roof.
The MJ edition.
But first, I want to tell you that it's the What's Bruin Symposium on the What's Bruin Show Network. Admittedly, there's not a whole lot of action going on with the other shows right now. They're all on hiatus for various reasons. But this is a symposium, and a symposium is a conversation over drinks, and that's what we're having right now. I happen to be having a little bit of Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. I used to be stuck up about Tennessee whiskey, not anymore, ever since I did Jack Daniel's Distillery Tour. It's a good, fine quality product, and Tennessee whiskey is good on its own merits. So I'm appreciating that, and I hope you appreciate a nice drink now and again. But that's what we're doing here on the symposium. You can, of course, support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/whatsbruinshow or whatsbruinshow.com for just $2 a month.
$2.
Or on Substack, whatsbruin.substack.com for just a little bit more. But you are supporting our independent little show here and sending us off into the future with whatever you deem necessary. And we appreciate your support. You can see the show on YouTube. Well, you can see a slideshow as you listen to the show on YouTube. Just search What's Bruin Show. And also on Twitter, at What's Bruin Show, Instagram, at What's Bruin Show, Threads, at What's Bruin Show. It's pretty much all at What's Bruin Show. You can email the show at whatsbruinshow@gmail.com with any of your suggestions or constructive compliments. And of course, you can get merch. See the show notes for details, but we have a MyLocker site, mylocker.net/shops/what's-bruin. I know it's a handful. Look in the show notes. And of course, you can also call the What's Bruin hotline. We've got a bunch of hotline calls this week, and we appreciate your calling in. But the hotline number is 805-399-4WBS, Second Reign of Troy. So we'll get to your calls a little bit later, but first I'm going to bring on my man, Mike, with the bro-affiliated headlines.
Big applause, Big Mike.
Iron Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Mike Regalado.
All right, Mikey, what headlines we have?
Not much. Definitely have a lot to talk about with football, but Jake, deal with it, buddy. Basketball's here. And it was on Tuesday. And even though basketball is here, I do have to admit, I didn't see the game.
Oh.
One, because it's an exhibition. Two, because I have three little awesome ones, and we went trick-or-treating in Pasadena, which, by the way, if you have a chance, damn.
I saw your photos. It was like 2 Barbie dolls, and what was Hugo?
He was an astronaut, and he was a very proud astronaut.
Yeah, that was cool.
And me, I was the bear.
Yeah, you had the bear costume on, yeah. Very cool. You guys all look good. I saw some of those Instagram pictures.
Thank you very much. So I will be watching that game later. So I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't even see it, but UCLA won that contest 97-56 without 4 players who are potentially starters: Adam Bona, Ademara, Dylan Andrews, which was kind of weird because he's okay. He's just being held out, precautionary. Getting him ready for Monday. Mick Cronin said that he will play on Monday in the season opener, but then Berke Bointuchel was also out. But even still, Bruins look to, from what I hear, go check it out at Bro for any analysis. But the team, rough patches, but not horrible to beat Cal State Dominguez Hills 97-56 in the first game of the season with this entirely new roster. Also, I want to plug the fact that, on Monday, it's a Bruin doubleheader. The men's and the women's team have their season openers on Monday at Poly Pavilion. The women at 5:30, the men at 8:30. So I'm definitely going to be there for the men's team. I'm going to try to sneak in for the women's home opener, mostly because I'm very excited. We've talked about this the last few weeks that the women they're expected to do a lot this season. But there's also some kind of breaking news, if you will, and you'll see this on an article that I put out
Let's
on
do the
Bro. I
breaking
have
news.
a video interview with head coach Corey Close, where she talks about
Breaking news.
the women's program NIL situation. They have also been linked with the men of Westwood, as in their collective name is the Champions of Westwood. So
wow.
that's some kind of breaking news. And yeah, so check that out on Bro. That should be out on Wednesday. And yeah, those are the headlines. That's what I got right now. But Jake, basketball is back, dude.
Yay.
I mean, the Lakers have had a week already. The Lakers and Clippers are actually playing right now.
Yeah, I'm not enjoying watching that game. I watched the first quarter and the Lakers are down by like 17. They're only down by like 13 now, but
really?
Yeah. Well, the Clippers have beat them like 12 out of 13 times or 11 in a row or something nonsense.
11 straight.
Yeah.
11 straight.
They own them until the postseason when they choke, so we'll see.
But
this might be with Harden coming there. It might be the year that we actually get the Laker-Clipper matchup in the playoffs, which would be pretty cool. But we'll see. Although I'm not hoping for it because the Clippers own the fucking Lakers in the last 3 years, so I don't like that. Anyways, Mike.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, in recent memory, there's only been like one Lakers-Clippers playoff game, hasn't there?
Never been.
Or never been.
Yeah.
That's right. When Kobe was alive, they were supposed to have that hallway series. And then I think, as you said, the Clippers choked. Didn't happen.
Yeah, it's
so
never
sad.
come through.
Too bad.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's never come through. Usually it's because the Clippers underachieve. A couple times because the Lakers underachieve.
Well, the Clippers suck historically.
Exactly. Let's not forget that. Mikey?
Yeah, the Lakers have 17 championships. Have the Clippers ever gone to the playoffs?
They've got to
times?
one
I don't know.
conference final.
I don't know.
That's it. Yeah. Mikey, let's get right to the football stuff, though.
Let's do it.
Blue 32, California, hood, hey! Football.
The game that was.
So UCLA beats Colorado 20-16 at the Rose Bowl. They probably should have scored more points. They probably shouldn't have let Colorado backdoor cover. But it was a game in which they completely dominated, really, if you look at how the game played out. Bill Connolly's win expectancy stat kind of supports that, and that they were, I want to say, like a 93% winner on that stat line. It just was one of those games where if they hadn't shot themselves in the foot a bunch times early, it would have been a much more comfortable game. But with that being said, 96.9% post-game win expectancy from Connolly, by the way. But I did a post-game on that. It's still in your feed, the last show behind this one. So if you want to hear what my thoughts were and hear the listener calls right after, listen to that, WB2. But Mikey, you were at the game.
Which, by the way, Jake, real quick, you were killing those.
Oh,
I mean, that is just, at least 45 minutes for a post-game. Oh, keeping the WBS, alive and kicking.
Yeah, I think they've all been plus 45 minutes, and I think we can say without a doubt it's the most comprehensive post-game show you're going to get for the Bruins this season. But let's stop.
I second that with no bias. But anyway, please continue.
Thank you, bro. thank you, Mikey. But no, I want to hear what you thought about the game. You were there. I was there for a half, and then I had to bail, go to a Halloween party. You were there for the whole game, and then you covered the game. What were your thoughts about the old Buffs? Actually, Mike, and to respond to this maybe. From the very first play, it was very clear to me, the Bruins were able to corral Colorado on offense and absolutely dominate and, destroy Shooter Sanders for most of the game. However, from the very first play where they had a handoff and he sprinted outside for 8 yards and they had a good opening drive, Colorado's team speed was very, very apparent and astounding at moments, right? Whether it's Travis Hunter making plays or just Shooter's accuracy or whatever, and the running backs were very fast. But obviously, you need more than just fast guys to win a football game. I think Colorado will be good in the future, but what were just your impressions of the game as a whole? I guess I didn't really ask you one whole question, but what were your thoughts on the Colorado game, Mikey?
No, that's a good point. That is actually an excellent point. And one of the things I was going to talk about, how UCLA is kind of starting slow offensively, and Colorado came out, supercharged. But really quickly, just first off, I want to talk about the atmosphere. It was supposed to be sold out. There were some patches in the Coliseum, but at the same time, it has been it's the most attended UCLA game in the Chip Kelly history. So bravo to
Mhm.
that. Secondly, just a ton of people. You could totally tell who the Dion fans were, not necessarily Colorado. I had a friend who said you can totally tell the difference. The dudes in the white polo shirts, the women in the white polo shirts, they definitely went to Colorado. The people that were in cowboy hats,
Brian
they're
Moore,
Dion
Neon
fans.
Dion, yeah.
It was, but at the same time, it's pretty impressive. It was pretty impressive. But the Colorado people showed out, and why not? But at the same, but that's the hype train is working. The mechanics of the current team, not so much. Now you said it. This is going to be a really good team in the future, and apparently Dion wants to replace anyone who's not going to help him win, which was that's just weird post game conversation.
Yeah,
Get
it was
a
real
lot of that.
classy.
But aside from that, they came out very fast, but at the same time, it seemed like it kind of seems like UCLA's defense is stalking its prey. Hey, let them do this, let them do this. They'll still stop them. They're not just going to let them get any yardage that they can. But I could kind of tell, like right around the second quarter is when they started to clamp down and understand what Colorado was doing, and the fact that they got. I can't even remember what the number of times that they got at Shador, but it was insane. They had 7 sacks,
high double digits.
10.5 tackles for a loss. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just say all the stats for the pressures and stuff. The sacks were 7, but then everything else, the hits, the pressures, all that stuff was like in the high teens to low 20s. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, just impressive. And they basically shut them down for the whole game. They got that, they got that last touchdown, which, whatever, they got it. It's not indicative of what the actual final score should have been.
No.
It pissed off a lot of people that gamble, but UCLA figured it out defensively. Offensively, starting out a little bit slow has kind of been a thing. They addressed this this week. I forget who it was. If I remember it, I'll let you guys know. But they, once again, just started off slow. And there are so many storylines with the offense right now. It looked really bad starting, mostly because they had 4 turnovers in the first half. But for up until all of those turnovers, it seemed like it was a really good drive. And then they stopped turning it over. Second half, they just were able to get in the end zone, put some points up. Special teams, woof. That needs to be figured out very soon. Because can you imagine how vital that would be in a very critical game? And then we have this type of production. They definitely have to figure it out. Hopefully sooner than later. There were a few people that were saying that. Do you think it's because Ethan Garbers wasn't holding for those games, or is it actual mechanics of the actual kicker? Which I don't want to put all that pressure on, because when you're a kicker and that's the only thing you do and you can't do it, that's gonna be painful.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And no, this isn't. I don't think this is a case of that, because he hit a few early and now he's on like a cold streak. But bottom line is, it shouldn't matter who's holding the dang thing. They got to find some way to make it work. And at the end of the day, it's the kicker, not the holder, that's that's responsible for kicking the darn ball. And I don't know why. I don't know. It's something that needs to get shored up, because you can't count on. The Bruins are almost the 11th team of the Pac-12 right now. I want to say they're barely over 50% on their field goals. That's not going to cut it.
Oh dear God!
Yeah, they're 6 for 11. 6 for 11, and a couple of them were just absolutely terrible.
And none of them have been like I should check this stat, but I'm sure very few are over 40 yards.
No, they're generally short. That's the problem, is that these look like. I mean, he doinked a 24-yard field goal. Like, that shouldn't happen. You doink a 45-yard one, we're like, okay, fine, that's okay. You almost made it. But from 24 yards, it should not be a doink. And the trajectory of some of these has just been so troubling. Even in the first game when he made, I want to say he made like a 45-yarder or something in the first game early against Coastal Carolina, and it looked like a dying duck as it went over the crossbar, but it made it, But I was worried we're maybe on borrowed time with the field goal kicker, and it looks like that's been the case. And they better get that straightened out, because, like, on the road at Arizona, the game could come down. The Bruins
Oh,
are
exactly.
the Bruins are a
3-point
3-point favorite, barely, and that's something that could be vitally important. So no, hopefully they can get that short up. But Mikey,
Yeah.
Thinking about Colorado, and once again, it was a very dominating performance by the Bruins everywhere, but pretty much on the scoreboard. It is kind of funny to me because when you think about how Colorado comes out of that game, and this, luckily I'm going to be able to shed myself of all my Colorado and DNVR podcasts now. I don't have to list them anymore because we're done with the Buffs, even going forward into next year. But
I mean, Jake, did you how was it rolling? How was it rolling up in your MyBook? And
that was nice.
What was your score off the 18th hole?
Right, because all those things are true. But
I came in my helicopter.
I know you did, Mike.
I had to be a little bougie. It was Halloween.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it worked out well. Yeah, but coming out of that game, some of those guys were saying, "Oh man, that game was right there for us. The Bruins tried to, we were ready to win that game. Yada 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 yada." And it's like, well, yeah, I guess in the first half, and the Bruins had 4 turnovers, but still led the game. By the way, they were kind of trying to give the Buffs every opportunity to take control of the game. In fact, the game very easily could have been 14-0, right? Mm-hmm. However, it wasn't 14-0 because beyond that first drive of the game, where I think you're right, Mike, I think UCLA was a little bit of feeling out Colorado, kind of the words you used were like stalking their prey. I think that's very accurate for this game because after that drive, literally the only offense that they got at all the entire game was Shedeur hucking a ball twice down the field, and a couple times they got lucky on a couple of plays down the field, but those were on blind faith. He had to chuck it up and hope his guy ran under it. Other than that, they got absolutely nothing on offense. And so to say that the Buffs were in the game, I don't think
they were not in the game.
I don't think I've ever been at a game at halftime where the score is 7-6 and the Bruins just had 4 turnovers and been less worried just because of how futile the Colorado offense was. And so to say, oh, they could have been up 14-0, no, they couldn't have been, because once when the Bruins turned the ball over inside their 30, it was like I had full confidence that was going to be a field goal because the defense was absolutely teeing off on the Colorado offense. And I guess that's a little bit. Maybe I didn't have that confidence after that, after that first turnover where Travis Hunter makes that great play. But the longer the game went on, it was very, very clear that the Colorado offense was not going to be able to do anything against the Bruin defense. So I guess that's really more accurate, I think, to say. And so that's why as we got into the second half, and even though the Bruins had to wait till the second half to get anything going on offense, because every time they got inside the red zone, Carson Steele would fumble it, or they had the 2 interceptions. It just was a game that seemed inevitable to me. And it, like I said, it is a shame that as much as the Bruin defense dominated, Colorado actually ended up getting that backdoor cover touchdown, because they did not deserve that. They did not deserve it at all.
But
whatever.
For you degenerate gamblers and you hippies and you money people.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the stats really quickly. I wanted to get your thoughts on the numbers. Colorado, which averages, I forget, like over 300 passing yards per game, was limited to 217 by the Bruins. By the Bruins, a team that has not been known for its passing defense. They're allowing 277 passing yards per game, 60 yards fewer for this high-powered passing offense. And it was, I think that's a bigger story than only allowing Colorado, which isn't known for its running game. They only allow them 25 rushing yards per game. What are your thoughts on those two numbers?
Well, I just think it's indicative of how good the Bruin defense is and how bad the Colorado offensive line is. How bad they are pretty much everywhere, but with their quarterback and their receivers, and their running backs are good too. But that was just such a mismatch, and that's what happens in a mismatch like that. There's no answer. Like I made the point. I want to say before the Colorado game that these were two teams that were kind of doing the same thing on offense, really throwing it short over and over again, but out of different, because of different necessities. And for UCLA, it's because Garbers hasn't really shown the ability to really go downfield yet. and he still didn't in this game. By the way, I think he had like 2 passes that went past the more than 20 yards down the field again. Maybe.
But you know what?
3.
If that leads to W's, dinking and dunking till you get more points, and then the defense is just shutting everyone down, hell, dude, it's boring as hell, but that's a win.
It's not that it's boring; it's just not going to be effective. I don't think you can count on that against a better opponent, right? That's the problem with it. But
do they have any opponents that you think could completely shut them down, remaining on the schedule?
Well, I'm kind of worried about going to Tucson, where our hopes and dreams have gone to die over and over and over again. So I mean that's the problem.
I was like, wait a minute, Arizona.
And by the way, ASU has been pretty game on defense as well. So I mean, I think they're playing 2 defenses in the next 2 weeks that could prove to be a problem if they can't get any explosive plays down the field. Bottom line is, you want the Bruin offense to be as good as it can be, and when you're completely eliminating the explosive side of it. And by the way, they took control of the game on 2 explosive plays, the opening drive of the second half. But it's like that was limited to that drive. 2 plays down the field, touchdown. But where was that the rest of the game? That's a problem with the Bruin offense. But going back to the point I was making is that the Bruins have to throw short, have been throwing short all the time under Garbers for whatever reason. I think, Mike, that can change. I think that Garbers does have the ability to get it going, and as he showed in that first drive of the second half. Colorado, against a team like the Bruins, has no chance. They're throwing short because if they hold the ball for much longer, literally Shedeur Sanders will have his head knocked from his shoulders, right? He has to throw the ball fast. They can't throw the ball downfield reliably. And like I said, they did it a couple times and they were able to make a couple completions, but those are few and far between in the game, and that's why they were dominated so thoroughly, because there were no answers. Colorado had no answers for the Bruin defense because they have nothing. They cannot block them one bit. And that's a problem, right? That's a complete mismatch. And that's why the Bruins, at the end of the day, statistically, even if they were sloppy with the turnovers, and that's what caused this game to be closer, statistically, they completely and physically, they completely dominated Colorado. And that's why Deion's talking about, I got to get rid of all these players and get new players, because he understands what happened, right? He doesn't want to see his son get hit 50 times. He doesn't want to see his son have to take a shot at halftime, I'm sure, by the way, but that's the state that they're in. And I think he knows that, right? They got lightning in a bottle early in the season, but now when you're playing in conference against teams that are much bigger, stronger than you on the inside, this is the kind of results you're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, and it is a good effort. It's his first year. He has hype. He got those first 3 wins, which brought in viewers. People are still watching because this team can be explosive offensively, defensively. Not really. Yeah. But
well, by the way, Mike, I actually came out of that game more impressed with their defense than I thought I would be, because at the very least, they hit really hard. I mean, I thought,
that's true. Yeah. And did you think that Shiloh Sanders hit was? Yeah, because I see the argument both ways. He did what he needed to do and put his shoulder into the chest, but his head, went into the other head. And I know you are not a fan of the targeting.
I hate targeting.
But what is? Yeah,
I'll tell you exactly what I thought about it.
What was your thoughts on that hit?
I'll tell you exactly what
I thought. Because that was a huge hit.
I thought it was a absolutely, completely clean hit that violated the rule of targeting, if that makes sense to you. I think the rule of targeting is absurd, obnoxious, and idiotic. However, he made a clean hit that happened to have a glancing helmet-to-helmet blow, and so I can understand why, if you're following the rule, you kicked him out of the game, right? That's basically my take on it. But it was a super clean hit. And by the way, the 2 hits that caused Carson Steele to fumble, part of me is like,
that first one was wow.
They were terrific hits. They were terrific hits.
They were very good hits.
I was more impressed with Colorado's defense than I was with, let me put it this way. I was more impressed with the Colorado defense. Was a surprise to me because of how hard they were hitting. And once again, it was by their outside players. The Colorado offense impressed me with just their individual performances. And basically that's Shedeur, right? Everything else was completely bottled up. But the defense, Travis Hunter is no joke. That guy, that is an athlete right there. Dear God. I watched him on TV a few times this year, and I'm like, oh man, he looks pretty good. But then watching him live and watching the interception he made, I was like, man, this guy is just sick. And I had the same sort of impression about the other Sanders. Why can't I think of his first name? The guy who got thrown out, the safety.
Shiloh.
Yeah, Shiloh Sanders. Thank you so much. And then they had another guy that was hitting pretty hard too. So it's like, that's why I'm like, if these guys do follow the Deion plan and get rid of all these guys, and they manage to get in guys that are a little bit better, which which, just going on a Colorado rant a little bit, I think that's going to be pretty hard to do because, it's pretty hard to get a wholesale change of your offensive and defensive line through the transfer portal. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if they get a bunch of really high recruits coming in as like freshmen. And so they have a lot of potential, but that potential is going to take a while to develop. And Shiloh and Shador and Travis are going to be gone before that, bears fruit, so they're kind of between a rock and a hard place in that they're not going to be able to solve their biggest problem overnight. And by the time their core superstar athletes are running out of time, I don't know if they're going to be able to develop by then. So you wonder what they're going to do. Now, it does help them. They're going to a trash conference in the Big 12, and I think Colorado. Mike, what do you think about Colorado and now looking at Arizona and Oregon and Arizona State and especially Utah? Like going to the Big 12, I think they're just going to completely dominate that conference, especially Utah.
I was thinking about this today. And first off, what were you talking about? What the Colorado defense is? It's kind of like they're a street gang right now, and they need to be turned into a mob, which is kind of like what UCLA is.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
They have guys that can make hits. They just need to get organized. But I totally understand what you're saying because they have so much momentum to bring in the talent, and if they get the coaching right, which it looks like it's there, you can't really judge it in the first year. But I do see what you're saying about how the defense, you came away impressed. But
I was really surprised by that.
Yeah.
So, Mike, it's funny you make a crime metaphor when there was an actual crime committed at the Rose Bowl, and it wasn't just the crime of the UCLA defense, battering Shedeur Sanders. There was an actual legitimate, crime. Hey, welcome to L.A., boys. This is how it
at
goes
the Rose
in California.
Bowl? What
Nothing's
are you talking
enforced.
about? What are you talking about, Jake?
So I there's a couple points I want to make about this. And number one is all the headlines are incorrect, by the way. They're incorrect because everybody's like, the Buffaloes got robbed at the Rose Bowl. They did not get robbed, Mike. Do you know what the difference is between a robbery and a burglary? Can you clarify that, Mike, or do you need me to do that?
All these people making speculations, saying it's UCLA, or no, it's the Rose Bowl, or no, it's the security guards, it's an inside job. It's just a weird situation, unfortunate situation, which once again got tangled up with by Deion Sanders, who is expecting the NCAA or the Rose Bowl to reimburse him because the Rose Bowl is the granddaddy of them all. Which, by the way, the Rose Bowl game is the granddaddy of them all, not necessarily the Rose Bowl itself. And and he even admitted that we're teaching about this and this and this. Oh, but we didn't teach them about insurance, so they can't get reimbursed. So now I'm going to blame everybody else to try to reimburse us. It was just, it's, dude, we talked about how the circus was coming to town last week. Man, the circus is taking its time to leave. You know what I'm saying?
It definitely is. However, I want to make sure we aren't, like you said, it's not their fault that their stuff
but please,
was stolen.
Robbery and burglary. That was your original question. What is the difference, Jake?
Well, number one, a robbery is theft that's committed through force or fear. So if someone they're in the locker room changing and dudes run in there with like an Uzi or something and say, give me all your stuff, or I'm going to hurt you, or I'm going to hurt this other guy unless you give me all your stuff. Like through force or fear, that's what a robbery is. A burglary is when someone enters into some place with the intention of committing some sort of theft or some other crime. This is a burglary, and they were burgled, and I wish that this was common knowledge so that people could get their damn headlines right. That is something that is super annoying to me.
Well, that's why we have Jake on the scene.
That's right. So number one, let's get that clear. Number two, I want to make sure that we are not casting any blame on the Colorado Buffs and their players for having their stuff stolen, because it's not their fault. You know what? You know whose fault it is? It's the asshole son of a bitch piece of shits that whether, it had to be some sort of inside job, because you know why? You just can't randomly walk into the Rose Bowl and steal a bunch of shit and make off with it. So obviously. And
additionally, let me just tell you this. I heard that the Rose Bowl usually has 100 security guards. Yeah. This was bumped up to 150. And what I filmed in pregame, Deion even had his own little, security group. So it's such a farce.
It is, but it is a shame, right? Because it shouldn't have happened, and it is embarrassing.
True,
and by the way, it's embarrassing for our city that it happened, but guess what? It's emblematic of what's going on in our city friggin' day after day after day. We have shit like this is going on all the time, and shit like this is going on all across the country because for all sorts of different reasons. So don't be
Jake, LA is
surprised by it.
perfect. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Hey, everything's shut down because of the fentanyl crisis. Don't you remember, Mike? Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The ghost town that is
But
Porter Ranch and El Segundo and Silver Lake. Yes, those ghost towns. Rest in peace.
I want to make sure. I want to make sure that we are not blaming the victims here, because it is not their fault. However,
it sucks.
When I used to teach these sorts of lessons in classrooms for a good chunk of my career to fourth grade to high school age students, I would make the following kind of analogy for them, and I would say, look, it's never someone's fault when they're the victim of a crime, and we want to make sure we're not blaming the victim of a crime for whatever it is. However, there are ways to make yourself an easier victim or a harder victim, right? And so, like, if you live in a neighborhood and you live in a nice place on a cul-de-sac or something, you don't want to be the easiest house to break into. So you have things like you have a dog in your house, or you have security cameras, something like that, right? It's not your fault if someone breaks into your house, but you can make things easier and harder. You can be easier or harder to steal from, right? And the example I'd always use is the guys in Malibu that would go surfing, and they would leave their keys on their tires, and then sometimes, guess what? Somebody would come by, grab their keys, and get into their car and steal all their shit. It's not their fault that they got their car broken into or they got their car stolen from, but they didn't put themselves in a real position to be successful, right? They didn't make it easier for it to happen to them. And so what I would say is that on a trip to Los Angeles, it doesn't help anybody for, you're going to play a game. I don't know how much free time that the young Buffaloes had to get around the town and show off all their bling or whatever, but it certainly isn't, it doesn't seem like the best move to bring all of your really expensive stuff and leave it in a locker room. Now, that doesn't mean that it's excusable that, the security was so lax that they allowed that to happen, or that you hired people that were less than reputable to guard the Rose Bowl, and then they went in there and did it. But from now on, maybe across college football, a lot of these young folks can learn a very valuable lesson, and that is, leave your jewels at home.
Yeah.
Don't take your gun
or jewels
to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your gun
or jewels
to town.
It's really important that they understand that, right? It's not your fault that someone stole your shit. But they can't steal your shit if you don't bring your shit to play in a game where you can't wear your shit, right? Like, you're not wearing that underneath your shoulder pads. You don't need that to get on the bus. You don't need that to walk through the airport, honestly. So I just hope that there is a lesson we learned here. Like Dion said, they didn't know to get insurance, right? And if you're not going to have insurance on all this really expensive shit, like, you think about how you hear stories in LA all the time of these celebrities are out there flossing their stuff, like they get followed home and get victimized, or someone will like the pool man or the maid or something will do an inside hit like that. And this is really no different than that. And I hope they find the perpetrators, and I hope they
come to justice.
They face justice. But the lesson that we learned from this, I think we all can learn, is just leave your jewels at home.
Don't take your gun
or jewels
to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your gun
or jewels
to town.
Now, Mikey, I want to turn the page on the Buffs, okay?
Can I add something really quickly?
Please, buddy.
You basically described preventative measures, and from a health perspective, like maybe being, I don't know, a vegetarian or a vegan. If you know that there are certain patterns happening in your family, like maybe diabetes in my family, you start from an early age to not take that route. That's the ridiculous thing about this whole thing. It's like, yes, I get you're trying to be fancy and you're trying to brand yourself fantastic. This whole thing could have been prevented by not going down the path of I don't need hubris, I guess. It's like, I know he's trying to build a brand, but you kind of have to back it up. And the fact that you come into the Rose Bowl with all these bling and then get it lost after losing, I'm thinking of like the recruits here. It's like, at what point do you go, oh man, this is awesome, and this is a circus? I mean, I'm sure some recruits looked at this game and going, "Wow, they can roll into the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, Los Angeles, and get all this attention." But then you're leaving, going, "Oh yeah, I got my $1,000 chain stolen from me." Like it's just a very weird vibe, It's like, we would definitely be chastising, like Washington if they're doing stuff like this, but at the same time, they freaking earned it. Georgia, Michigan, they've earned it. But then you look at Georgia, Michigan, Washington, they are handling themselves professionally. That's the weird thing that's what just doesn't sit right with me. I've been criticized like, "Oh, you just don't like Deion." It's like, it's not that I don't like Deion. It's like all these successful teams are successful because they're handling their business and they're just shutting up and moving on to the next game.
I would. I take your point, and I do understand. There are definitely a lot of easy ways to be rubbed the wrong way by the Buffalo and the swag, and it just seems so premature. And also, it's super annoying that, like I said, if you take the 100% pie of people that are following the Buffs this year, I think 42% are actual dyed-in-the-wool Colorado fans, and the other, and 58% are just there for the Deion show, right? And so that, and at the end of the day, they're 4-4 now, and they've lost 4 straight or 4 out of 5 or whatever. So that's very well taken. However, I would push back on how together some of these other teams are, considering Michigan's going through a cheating scandal. Georgia just had a staffer die and another guy in the offseason, and multiple players charged with crimes from drag racing and things like that. I think just as a whole, when you think about across college football, and this goes to a greater point of why I'm kind of thankful for how Chip Kelly runs this program, knock on wood, with no problems. But you look across college football and you look at what some of these young people are doing as they are empowered, and rightfully so, because of what they're contributing to and the amount of money that they're generating, and now, thankfully, taking home a little. But the entitlement and the inability to make good decisions when you have kind of the world as your oyster, and the downfalls that can be suffered from that are a little troubling. And so, like I said, I don't want to tie this back to Deion and his guys getting their stuff stolen, because once again, they're the victims here. They're not the ones that broke the law. So I mean, but the swag and the putting yourself in the situation, there is a little bit of a parallel there. So I do think it's a point well taken, Mikey. But can we put the Buffs to bed at this point? Can we be done with the Buffs? Can we turn the page on the Buffs?
Please.
Thank you. Please and thank you. So let's get to the game that will be.
Blue 32! Blue 32! California! California! Hood! Hey! Football. It's the game that will be. It's the game that will be, yo. It's the game that will be.
All right, so the Bruins will be heading to the desert, along with me and Mike. We're going to go out there and meet Jamaal. And it's going to be, there are a bunch of soft factors of this game that are terrifying me. One is the time, 7:30 p.m. in the desert.
Right?
That bodes ill for the
after
Bruins.
dark, Supreme Edition.
Oh, my God. The Bruins are a 3-point favorite in this game. That terrifies me as well.
That's scary.
I guarantee you that Arizona will be everybody's home dog of the week, whether it's the Solid Verbals, Yako's home dog of the week, or anybody else's. People are going to look at that and be like, oh, yeah, I remember many times the Bruins going to the desert and being absolutely, destroyed in a variety of ways. Even though they won their last game out there, that was against a much more inferior Arizona team. This is just one of those ones.
That was still a tough game. I remember that.
Yeah, this was just screams terror to me, right? Especially coming off of Halloween. But anyways, the game will be at 7:30 on Fox Sports 1. The Bruins are a -3, a 3-point favorite. They are number 19 in the country. That's the college football playoff ranking, if I remember right. But that's where they're at.
And did you realize once the rankings came out, FUAP, because the Bruins are 20th in the AP and the coaches. Nobody cares about the coaches really.
Yeah.
But the AP was 20, and all day on Sunday, UCLA is up to number 20. and Monday, and the rankings come out for the college football playoffs. Oh, now we're up to number 19. So
in a perfect world, in a perfect world, the AP and the coaches would cease to exist, and we just have the college football playoff poll starting like midway through the season. But I mean, that'll never happen. But it is what it is. So yeah, you're right. The college football playoff poll now takes over. And the Bruins are 19 in that. And if they keep winning, they could move on up to who knows? It could be a top 10 style season by the end of it if we play our cards right. But with that being said, we have this game at hand. ESPN, the Bruins are a 3-point favorite. ESPN has them as a narrow favorite, 52.4% win probability as of right now.
Very slim. Yeah.
The over-under is 51, which is an implied score of 27 Bruins, 24 Wildcats. Bill Connolly is a little more bullish on the Bruins for this game. He's got the Bruins at a 60% win probability, and his final score is just a little above that. Final score 31-27 according to Connolly. He has the Bruins as a 4 and almost a 4.5 point favorite. Those are the details for the game. But Mike, you're flying out there on Friday night just like I am. Is that true?
Yes, sir. And then coming back on Sunday?
Yes, sir. Are you flying into Phoenix or Tucson, buddy?
Tucson.
Okay.
Going to Tucson, straight to. And yeah, apologies for the loud motorcycle noises here. I am en vivo in Avenida Cesar Chavez in Great Boyle Heights because we're obviously recording a day late. Yeah. We have families and Halloween, and it's a great thing that we all appreciate. So we delayed the show, unfortunately, for one day. But I'm doing it right before my gig at KQBH.
That's
Quick
right.
plug right there.
There we go.
But there have been UCLA Arizona games at Arizona, which have looked like UCLA should go in and dominate. Carl Durrell takes the Bruins in there, and they're on a what were they at, Jake? 7-0, 8-0 if they won that game, something like that. And then Arizona just annihilates them. There have been some heartbreakers in Tucson, and I'm not looking forward to this on many levels. But it's this year specifically is very fascinating because of what Jed the Fish has done.
That's right. Don't forget
in the desert, because obviously when Jim Mora got fired, he was promoted to interim head coach, and he had those last two games. And he was as an offensive coordinator, he was pretty impressive. And I remember a lot of fans saying, "Hey, why not give him a shot?" But at the same time, Chip Kelly's in the mix. I can understand why UCLA went with Chip Kelly over Jed Fish or anybody that was in contention at that time, for obvious reasons. And obviously it started slow, but I think every Bruin, despite what Bruin fans think of Chip Kelly right now, I would think that the majority of the fan base would agree that at that time, that was the best hire. Anyway, we're here now in 2023. Jed Fish has created a monster. He has 5 wins already with 4 games left. And I believe that was their win total from last season. So that just talks about says how much this team has improved, especially since they went 1-11 in his first year. And now they're 5-3, I believe. One more win, they get bowl eligible. I honestly did not think that they would be at this point in the season. And he offensively, defensively, they have just really outperformed. And it's been weird too, because they have not exactly the same, but a similar situation with UCLA and having to switch starters and go with someone else who has become like more successful, like Noah Fafita. He has been quite an exceptional quarterback. He's been able to manage the game and get points on the board. And it's been crazy because a lot of Arizona's games this season have been shootouts. And he's been a part of some of those that have been really exciting. If Arizona beats UCLA this weekend, it'll be their 3rd consecutive week in a row that they beat a ranked team. That's insane. That is my initial reason of why this game is scary. Not so much that they're going to Tucson, but I mean that just adds to it. You're just going into the Lions' den or the Wildcats' den, and this is. I don't think UCLA will walk in there and say, "Oh, we're going to handle this," but I think they need to be very prepared for what they're about to go into.
No, I think they do too, Mike. And and us as Bruin fans with our battered Bruin syndrome, before we get to trivia time and all that stuff and really reset the game. In the last number of years, the Bruins have actually been relatively successful in Tucson when they've had decent teams. Jim Mora's team in 2013 beat the Wildcats 31-26, and then even as the Josh Rosen team, they won out there 56-30. And then in the Chip Kelly era, we lost in 2019. That team was sucked. But the last time we played in Tucson was Chip Kelly's first decent team, and that was like you mentioned, they won 34-16. But what really gives us nightmares as Bruin fans, is the early aughts, and that is in 2005 when the Bruins go out there, I think they were 8-0 and just got shelled 52-14. That was a couple years later. They go out there and they lose in 2007, 34-27, and then the worst, the coup de grace, right before Rick Neuheisel is fired in 2011, they lose 48-12 out there in the desert. So there have been some pretty ugly games out there, and that's what we're kind of channeling.
But Jake, there was one specific game where they won Mr. Miles Jack that was turned the tide on all of that, if only for a season. That is a good memory.
Well, I think that's the first one I mentioned. That 31-26 game. Yeah, that was great. I think that was the Miles Jack game. So that part's all fine. So maybe that did kill the juju. I'm just saying that, Mike, we feel this way about going to that stadium. We feel this way about going to that stadium for a reason, right? And so we can't forget. We can't forget. That's the all-time. I think that's one of the
never forget.
My all-time. It's to me. It's ingrained in my head worse than the Stanford losses, because the Stanford losses in the early aughts, those were teams that started fast and then faded fast, right? And that was the end of the Bob Toledo era and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That game, that Carl Durrell's 10-win season, that game in particular was just such a slap in the face. It's like running into a brick wall. And then they end up losing to SC big the week later or whatever. But anyways, enough of the demons of the past. Let's get into trivia so we can get on with our talk about this matchup. Okay.
Now it's time for Jake's Trivia, brought to you by Jake, bringing you all the coolest trivia of UCLA football's opponent for this coming week. And now, Jake.
So, Mikey, this is the last time we're going to play the Zone of Zones, the Wildcats. We're out there in the desert. We're going to Tucson partially to see our buddy Jamaal, but also partially just because this is the last time the Bruins will face the Wildcats for a while on the football field, as far as we know. So I'm going to pull out some of the old trivia, and I have a nice presentation for the Zone of Zones. Number one, we'll start with one of an easy one. A federal grant was awarded to Arizona to build U of A. The Arizona residents wanted to use the money for something else instead. Do you remember what they wanted to use it for all the way back in 1885, Mike?
Oh, God, Animal House? No, sorry, that's Oregon. Yeah. Oregon State.
They wanted to build a well instead of a school, which really lines up a lot with what we think of Arizona people, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
But I guess they're in a desert. Who's going to blame them? They end up building the school instead in 1985. Tucson.
Tear down the wall.
Yeah, you bring
tear
nice,
down
Mike.
The wall.
You bring up Animal House. Tucson has been the backdrop for several films, mostly westerns, right? We think about all the great westerns from Arizona. The University of Arizona campus, however, was the filming location for a college romp comedy, not Animal House, as we know that's Oregon. Go Ducks! What movie, which has not aged well, given the what the times are like now? Do you know what movie that was, Mikey?
You just gave it. Was it Revenge of the Nerds?
Revenge of the Nerds, right?
Yes.
Good job.
Weird.
Yeah.
Dude, I literally today went on Facebook and I follow Ranker, which is kind of an interesting website which ranks this category or this. And
of course,
one of them today, the one that I saw today was the top 20 movies that could not be remade today. Guess what was number one?
Oh, it had to be Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds. That was at Arizona.
The climax for the hero, the winning of the hero is basically a date rape. So yeah, there you go. Great job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Gross.
Let's go Wildcats, right? Mikey, U of A is totally a basketball school. Unlike UCLA, they're totally a basketball school. Nobody really cares about their football team. Everybody wants their basketball team to do well. So they pay.
They have
guys,
a football team.
So they pay guys like Kurt Kriisa to come to the school and suck.
Wow,
But
you went there.
because they're such a vaunted basketball school, Mike, remind me, how many national titles have the Wildcats won?
In football?
No, in basketball, Mike. They're a basketball school.
One.
Arizona can go fuck themselves.
One.
Arizona
They won one national basketball championship. One. Uno.
Hey, Arizona?
Arizona can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, you can.
Wow.
Mike, last trivia question for you before we get to the story of Bear Down.
Yeah.
What is the official?
This episode has it all, Jake.
This is the requisite Arizona question that we always ask for the Arizona game. Mike, if Bill were here, he'd be shedding a tear. What is the official state neckwear of Arizona, Mike?
The bolo tie.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's good. We need some terms for that. That's been the trivia every year for the 10 years of the show.
Pretty much, yes.
Now, in a special presentation, we get to the story of Bear Down, because of course the Wildcats have their slogan, right? It's like "Go Bruins" or like "Fight On" or whatever, right? And theirs is "Bear Down, Wildcats." So if you didn't know where Bear Down comes from, it's the rally cry. It has roots that are over 100 years old, back to the Roaring '20s, and it predates even "Win One for the Gipper," and you'll see why that's important in a moment. In the fall of 1926, John Button Salmon maybe, was a varsity quarterback, a baseball catcher, and generally an all-around popular campus figure for the Wildcats. In early October, and this kind of reminded me of, I just watched Remember the Titans when I was up in the Bay Area over the weekend, last weekend, and this kind of reminded me of that. In early October, the Wildcat varsity defeated the freshman squad in an annual match, and Salmon and several of his friends were returning from a visit to Phoenix, and an automobile crash near North Tucson put him in critical condition. Very sad story. Salmon, 22 at the time, died the morning of October 18th. The coach at the time, Pop McHale, visited Salmon in the hospital and later told the rest of the team that Salmon's last message to his teammates was, tell them to bear down. During his application process to be the director of the U of A band, when he was flying in an airplane, Jack Lee saw "Bear Down" on giant letters on one of the campus buildings, and he was inspired to pull something from his, to write it down while he was on the airplane, and he was inspired to write the song, their chant "Bear Down, Arizona." And now, to really bring this home, I'm going to give you the story of Bear Down as told by a vapid Arizona co-ed. Mike, are you ready for it?
Ready.
So he pulled out his barf bag and he started to write down words to a fight song for the University of Arizona. Bear down, Arizona. Bear down, red and blue. And those words he wrote on that barf bag became our fight song for the University of Arizona, and it's called Bear Down. Bear down, Arizona. Hit 'em hard, let 'em know who's who. Bear down.
Mikey, are you ready for the Wildcats?
Ready.
Okay, so I'm actually kind of excited because we're recording a day late because of Halloween, but this actually means that we can use some of the awesome stats that Greg from the Pac-12 actually sends out, which he always sends out like Tuesday night for Wednesday morning, but I always get it too late to put into our show.
Mm-hmm.
So Mikey, I have a few stats for you regarding Arizona UCLA in this matchup. Number one, assuming that Noah Fifita starts against the Bruins, which we think he will, he'll be the first FBS quarterback since 2012 to make his first 5 career starts against AP-ranked opponents. That's how tough the Wildcat schedule has been, right? The last QB prior to Fifita to make his first 4 career starts against the AP-ranked opponents was Stanford's Kevin Hogan, who did in 2012. So that's kind of exciting.
Wow.
Number 19, UCLA against Colorado on Saturday. The Bruins turned over 4 times, marking the first time the Bruins have won a game when committing at least 4 turnovers since 2012 versus Houston. And the first time they've won a conference game while committing 4 turnovers since 2009 against Washington. That was a Neuheisel year, not a good year. So, I mean, that's some pretty rare air when you turn over 4 times and still win the game. But that shows how much the Bruins dominated the Colorado team. It was ridiculous.
Exactly.
This week's trip to Tucson will be the Bruins' last chance to earn a regular season win outside the state of California this season. How you like that? Does that just blow your mind? That's crazy. I didn't even think about that, but it is. The Wildcats have the best record through 8 games, their best record through 8 games since 2017. With a win, this is what shows you what Arizona has on the line. They could become bowl eligible for the first time since 2017. And it would also extend their winning streak to 3 games over AP-ranked teams, and it would be their longest winning streak against AP-ranked teams since 1992. So this Wildcat team, which we thought was going to be kind of so-so this year, is really flirting with some pretty fun stuff for them. So they're motivated, right? And that's what scares me about this game. As far as the all-time series goes, UCLA leads this series 27-18 with 2 ties. And they're 8-4 in the Pac-12 era. Like I said, some of our nightmares about Arizona are from earlier times, before the Pac-12, but they're still there. Both teams are 3-2 in conference, and both teams are in a 4-way tie in the conference with Utah and Oregon State. In case you didn't realize, this is a showdown of 2 teams that are tied in the conference. Big important game, right? And by the way, Mike, thinking about how Arizona has been playing, don't you think they should be ranked? As opposed to some of these other teams. Like, I know they've got the 3 losses, but they feel like a ranked team to me, even though they're not. So I don't know where they land in the otherwise receiving votes. Last couple stats for you, Mikey. UCLA is 6-0 this season when they score at least how many points? What do you think?
I think I saw the stat. 35?
25. If they can get to 25, okay, that's their magic number. If they can get to 25, they're going to win the game. So let's think about that when they play Arizona. And guess what?
Sorry. You're right. That stat that I just spit out was the average amount of points for the top 5 or top 6 college football playoff teams, something like that. They're all averaging like 35 points a game or above. We
can make this like a rot index. The Rain of Troy used to have an index for like if the Trojans score this many points, they're going to win. Well, the Bruins, if they can get to 25 points, things look good for them in this game. Guess what? They're 0-2 when they don't score 25 points. Both were road losses to AP-ranked opponents. We know the horror show that was Utah and the tragedy in Corvallis. All right. Mike, thinking about this game before we get to the nuts and bolts of the zone of zones, what are you thinking about this matchup going to the desert?
Like I said, it's just tough considering the fact that UCLA does not do well there historically, but I've always been a big believer that who gives a crap what happens in the past. You got to deal with what's happening now and the situation that is in front of you. But that is another part that scares me, because the situation in front of UCLA is the fact that Jedfish has really got this team going. The fact that it was such a grinded out game against Oregon State, but it was so fun to watch. It was such a good game. This Arizona team is very scary, and I do not expect, if UCLA wins, and we're going to get into predictions soon, if UCLA wins, it will not be by a lot. But I will also not be surprised if Arizona wins this game, considering the fact that they have a lot of momentum on their side. UCLA does not do well in Tucson, and they're running on all cylinders.
I am really wondering how this will shake out, because I agree with you, Mike. The last balanced team we played was Oregon State, and Oregon State was able to kind of take advantage of some of the Bruin defense a little bit, because they were just harder to defend, right? And Arizona has a little bit of that going on in this game. They're balanced. Their pass versus run is fairly balanced. And I'm wondering what wins out. Does their balance win out and allow the Bruin defense to be a little more vulnerable than they have been against some of these other opponents? Or will they, Oregon State, I think we thought was pretty darn good on offense, pretty darn good running the ball, and good enough throwing the ball. I don't know if Zona is quite as good as Oregon State, notwithstanding last week when they beat the Oregon State, right? They beat them at home. But will they be able to run the ball good enough to open up what they need to open up in the passing game? Or will the Bruin defense be able to overwhelm them? Maybe not as much as they did Colorado, certainly not that well, but there is a point of you have to be at least so good to pose this UCLA defense problems, I think. And so I don't know. That's what's going to be the test. Is Zona good enough to kind of really take advantage of the openings that whatever UCLA decides to give them the ability to strike out against? But they got some guys that can play. And being at home is certainly good for them. And I'm real curious to see how they do on offense. They got Noah Fafita, right? We just talked about him a minute ago. He's played against 4 ranked opponents. He's throwing for 75% accuracy, almost 8 yards per attempt. He's got 11
Insane.
TDs to 3 interceptions, and he's been in pretty much over 300 yards a game over that time. So, I mean, he hasn't been a slouch. However, you think about, like, the competition that he's faced,
how has their defense been?
Well, their defense, I'll get to that in a minute, but I mean, so he's thrown.
No, I'm talking about the defenses that Fafita has gone against, like nationally in the conference.
Well, I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying. So he's played in the 4 games against these ranked opponents. Washington, I don't think we think Washington is a fantastic team, but they don't have the best defense in the country. They're like in the 70 or 80th rankings as far as most defensive stats go. We know what Southern California's defense is like, right? I think we all agree that Washington State's defense is pretty darn vulnerable, right? Even though that was at Washington State. The toughest defense they've played in that 4-game stretch is Oregon State, which I think, is in the ballpark of UCLA, but I don't think nearly as good. But they still put up 27 points against Oregon State. But what does that mean? What will they be able to put up against the Bruins? I don't know. I'm hoping the Bruins can hold them under 20, and I think if they do, I think the Bruins will have a chance to win the game. But this will be the toughest test defensively that they have faced all season. You can say that about the Wildcat offense. Like, the Bruin defense is something that they haven't seen yet. So we're going to have to hope that is going to be good enough to hold them down. When they're running the ball, they have like 3 backs who are all pretty good. One's coming back from injury. Michael Wiley was their lead back, but he got hurt. So he's been out a few games, but I think he might be coming back. DJ Williams and Jonah Coleman have been splitting the work, and they've both been pretty good. I think Jonah Coleman's averaged 8 yards a carry or something, pretty gaudy. And I think DJ Williams has been more like 4 or 5, but they've both been pretty good. And then the wide receivers, you're not going to get guys that are much better than Jacob Cowing and T-Mac McMillan. So they definitely have some potential to pose the Bruins some problems. Don't you think, Mike?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, not exactly, but you remember when you coined the term the amoeba offense during the Mora era?
I do.
You especially made that a narrative with the offense, them being able to go to. God, I wish we could play that one Jim Mora clip where he's talking about every single play that he's going to do, but simplistically, it was just being able to pass and run, have a good balance, and just be dynamic in each aspect of the offense. And that's kind of what's going on. I mean, it's not completely explosive. It's not, Fafita, who's only played, hasn't started the entire season. Is not in the Heisman conversation, but at the same time, he's really doing a good job of managing this offense. It's just a really it's not very tempo based, but it's methodical and very quick for what it is trying to put out there. And it's still very young because Fafita is a true freshman. And can you imagine this kid in 2-3 years? He's going to be a freaking beast.
Yeah, I think that the signs point up for this is another team, just like Colorado, especially Utah, and especially Zona. I think they're going to the Big 12 and they're going there to win. So I think that the future's bright for these guys. In a way, I'm glad that this is the only time we're going to have to face them. But obviously the Bruins are going to have their own problems going to the Big 10. I am struck with that. I think that there is a chance that the Bruin defense will be too much for these guys, and that they haven't faced a team that is going to be on them and hit them as well as the Bruins can. However, I also very easily could see it going like Oregon State did for the Bruins, and the Zona being just good enough on either through the run game or the pass game to keep the Bruins at bay and find gaps and holes to exploit, right? And I think that really is. To me, that's the key of the game, because I think the Bruin offense versus the Zona defense, which we'll get to in a minute, I think that's kind of a wash. I think the Bruins will be able to score some points. I think the Zona defense will be able to get some stops on them, but I don't see that as the key aspect. I really think it's, the Bruin defense is either going to play well and they're going to shut down the Arizona offense, or the Zona offense is going to kind of have a game, a nice game at home and kind of put a little too much pressure on the Bruin offense to kind of outscore them. And I think if we get into that sort of game, that's the kind of game I don't want to be in. I'd rather be in a low-scoring affair where the Bruin offense can just kind of stay within themselves. I don't know. I mean, looking at the Zona defense, Mikey, they've been pretty good, but once again, I don't know if they've gone up against anything quite like the Bruins running game at this point. I mean, Oregon State certainly can run the ball. that is very true. But other than that, Washington, Southern Cal, Washington State, they haven't really gone up against too many running games so far this season. So I think if the Bruins can concentrate at really controlling the ball, not turning it over, which I don't have any faith in that at this point, but if they can avoid making big mistakes, I think they can move the ball against the Zona defense. Just can they get enough scores? But Zona's defense is perfectly competent. Do you have any impressions about that?
No, is like I said, it just seems like it's coming together at the right time. It's actually been a good progression over the last 3 years for Jedd Fisch. And, I said earlier how I was surprised at how the team has developed, but, you really shouldn't, because they have the same structure. They have a lot of good, veteran players. They're just coming together at the right time and trying, and it seems like they're getting a collective understanding of what they're going up against. And that's the scary part. It's like they're when a team comes together, we hear that term midseason form. Well, they're going above and beyond. And the fact that they are in a 4-team race for 4th place in the Pac-12 shows you just how much this team has not only improved, but how scary and how much they can just punch a team in the mouth. But they are still young, and that's why I still think that UCLA has a bit more experience on defense, which that's going to be the interesting part for me. Arizona's methodical, but UCLA seems to be very smart this year. And I think
smart how?
I actually think that this week UCLA will start quicker than we've seen. And hopefully that is one of the key to the games that allows them to get a win. But you just don't know with this Arizona team, because everybody thought that they were going to be horrible. They're overachieving, but how much are they overachieving? Where are they going to be? And like I said before, if Arizona beats UCLA, I will not be surprised.
No, and there are a couple things that I am worried about, because it's like we can say, well, I think they're going to get off to a quick start, but why would we think that? They really haven't done that in the entire conference season. Sure, they did against the other, their non-con opponents, but against the conference opponents, Stanford's the only game where it kind of went to plan early, right? They got up big on Stanford and just coasted from there. But against Utah, against pretty much all the teams that Dante Moore faced, they started the game with a pick six or an interception. And even in this game against Colorado, they start with an interception, this last game. And so part of me is I'm worried about the Bruins and their turnovers, because they've shown that they just turn the ball over. And after 8 games, is that just a characteristic of this team? I thought that a couple of the ones against Colorado were kind of freak turnovers. The 2 Carson Steele ones especially, those were plays that I don't think would normally happen, but for the great hits that were laid on him by the Colorado backfield, and then the turnover, the 2 interceptions were kind of more Travis Hunter than really anything the quarterbacks really did wrong, so to speak. But still, the Bruins are finding ways to turn the ball over in each and every game they play, and that is worrisome, right? And so I'm worried about them getting off to a bad start, because they've done it quite a few times this year. And at the same time, I mentioned how the Arizona defense is very respectable. They're really more than respectable, right? They're pretty stout against the run. It's not as gaudy as the Bruins are with their, sub 2 yards per rush average or whatever. They're at 3.21 yards per rush. And they're not gaudy on defense in any way, except for the fact that most of their opponents, they're holding them to less yards than their averages. They're holding them to less of a score than their averages. And they're roughly in the top 50 in TFLs and sacks. They average 6 TFLs a game and 2.5 sacks per game. And those are all perfectly legitimate and respectable numbers. And they're not imminently vulnerable in any respect. So I think it is important for the Bruins to not put themselves in a bad position early in this game, because there's no guarantees against this zona defense that if you give them a little bit of a spark, that they aren't going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the Bruins. And if you give this offense any life, I think that they can kind of get loose with it. Now, it helps that the Bruin defense has been so good all year, and it helps that Fafita, as much as we've been singing his praises, is literally 4.5 feet tall. So is he going to have some problems running around back there? If they can, the Bruin tree trunks coming at him. We'll see. I think these are all kind of issues that could cut in the Bruins' favor. But this isn't a game on the road where they can F around. They got to go in there and really. They're the favorite in this game. Vegas says so. They need to go in there and show it, and go in there and really put it on the Wildcats and try not to give them any life. It's hard to do that for a whole college football game. The games are so long, but the Bruins, I just don't want to see Arizona string together big moments in this game, because that could spell some big trouble for the Bruins. Mike, I think we started talking about turnovers right here, and then I waxed on, but what is your opinion of that?
Yeah, that's the thing. For everything that UCLA is doing defensively, the sacks and the tackles for loss are great, that those forced punts, but not exactly turnovers. And UCLA has had its fair share of forcing turnovers, picking up fumbles or getting interceptions. And God bless you, Alex Johnson, who I believe he's leading the Pac-12 in interceptions per game. But still, dude is a walk-on. He's a baller. The fact that UCLA's offense is not
just a baller, man.
Exactly. I was waiting for that. The fact that UCLA's offense is giving up so much. And it's weird. It's just because you look at it like there should be no reason. There are 3 turnovers in 3 interceptions in a first quarter. Those were kind of like legitimate turnovers, as you said. Those hits were big, which caused the turnovers, the fumbles, and sometimes you just can't help it. If a defense makes a great play, like there's just no way you could have avoided that. But that's the thing. You got to put your offense in a position to avoid those turnovers, get them out to the, sidelines, or, if they're in the middle of the field, go down before you get, just completely wrecked. But, it's all circumstantial. Every play is different. I'm not going to say, hey, this is what you should have done, because I don't know. I wasn't there. But UCLA does have to put itself in a good position offensively. And what I mean by that is not, the scoring, fantastic. Slow starts, whatever. But as we saw in this last game, 4 turnovers in the first half, just completely, it was like a gut punch, and then they had to get their breath back, and then they finally started doing stuff in the second half. You can't have that happen, especially late in the season or the postseason.
Yeah, no, and I am hoping that their turnover luck is better in the last part of this season, because I thought that they were very unlucky against Colorado, just with the 2 fumbles Carson Steele had. Fear maybe one of those might happen, but not 2 like they did, and that certainly is costing them points, and it's costing them momentum. But one thing to keep in mind, the turnover battle in this game is very, very important, just considering that they have had 2 turnovers at least in 6 of their 8 games this season, and that has really crippled their ability on offense to put up some nice gaudy numbers. Now, on the flip side, Arizona, under Jed the Fish, is +5 in turnovers in their 11 wins, and they're -30 in turnovers in their 21 losses, which, generally correlates. You have more turnovers, generally you're going to lose the game. You have less turnovers, you win the turnover battle, generally you're going to win the game. I mean, so that's not a surprise correlation, but it just points to how important that is in this game and for the Bruins going forward. They got to slow these turnovers down, and hopefully that happens. They went from Moore to Garbers pretty much specifically because of the turnovers, and then they end up getting through the Stanford game clean, but then melting down against Colorado. They can't have that continue to happen. All right, it's time for our predictions, Mike, but before we do that, we haven't had the opportunity yet this show, and I want to get this out of the way. What is the name of the Bruins starting quarterback, Mike?
This weekend, the Bruins will have starting, and I'll tell you why. It's because may have some ups and downs, but for the most part, there is a comfort level with what he has been able to do. But yes, Ethan Garbers should be the starter for this weekend.
My name is Ethan.
Just call me Eve.
That'll be a drop for Ethan now going forward. I may have to lower the Ethan part of it, but I like it. It was brought to us by the logo designer for the What's Bruin Show, Dave. And I want to thank you, Dave, because as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, yeah, I like that quite a bit. And I was searching for an Ethan drop. So, Ethan, if you keep playing as the Bruins starting quarterback, we'll be hearing this quite a bit.
My name name is
Ethan.
or just call me Eve.
But thank you, Mike, for that. Mike, what's your prediction for this game?
You know, I didn't think it would be this close. Just trying to I try to imagine the offense versus defense, the defense versus offense, and just see what they do best against certain teams that are lesser than them and what they are able to do against teams that are better than them. And I still come down to what the freaking projected spread is. I have UCLA winning 21-18.
Oh, 21-18? Okay. Mike,
I told you it was close to yours.
Yeah. I'm at 24 Bruins, 19 Arizona, and I'm hoping that the Bruin defense, I think the Arizona offense will be able to move the ball better on them than the Buffs, obviously. But I'm hoping the Bruin defense can hold them to field goals and limit the big plays like they have been able to do all season pretty much. Get a touchdown there, but then a bunch of field goals. And I'm hoping the Bruin offense can put together at least 4 scoring drives. And I'm imagining that there's not going to be a whole lot of field goals from the Bruins, so they're going to have to score touchdowns. So I'm hoping they get to 24, hoping they hold Arizona 19. 24-19 would be the Bruin victory, and we're off and running from there on to ASU at the Rose Bowl. Mikey, it's been great. We're going to bring you back for What's Bruin with You in a few minutes, but we also have a bunch of listener calls that I want to get to right now. So we'll be back in a minute with you, okay? All right, it's time to get your calls. 805-399-4WBS. Second Rate of Troy. That's the phone number. You guys have been doing a great job all season of calling and leaving your thoughts about the game, whether it's some positive feedback for the Bruins, whether it's your breakdown of the game from your own perspective, whatever it is, call the show and let us know what you have to think, and we'll play it either on the postgame following the game or here on this show if it comes in a little bit too late. I will say that I pre-recorded these at a different location with a different microphone, so that's why my voice changes quite substantially, and I apologize for any disconcertingness of that, but it is what it is. We have 4 or 5 calls today, so let's get right to them. Who's first?
Good morning or afternoon, guys. Happy Wednesday or Hump Wednesday. Jazz from Santa Clarita, just calling with a quick question. One, not a question, just want to say, glad we are 19 in the CFP. A19 was being played all day yesterday. I don't know what would be the next song if we move up, but who cares? Anyway, out of curiosity, maybe somebody knows for sure or not, when do you guys think they'll have the remaining start time for the remaining 3 to 4 games? Or I guess not 3 or 4 because they got the Arizona State already. So USC and Cal are the last 2. What do you guys think about the start times for those? Are they waiting to see if both USC and UCLA kind of win a couple more games to be put in an earlier bracket or whatnot? Anyway, hope you guys have a great day and show, and go Bruins and go WBS.
Thanks, Des. Appreciate your call, and it's always good to hear from you, brother. As far as the times go for the starting of the games, I think it's been in that pattern all week, hasn't it, or all season, hasn't it? Where we find out a couple weeks before the game what the start times will be. So I'm sure that, you think about the Cal game, which is on Thanksgiving weekend, or the SC game, the Crosstown Showdown, which is the week before that. It's probably going to depend on how hot these teams are. If UCLA keeps winning, they'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of top 10 to 15 ranked, right? If you think about it, by the time you get to SC. So that would be an attractive matchup that you could see them smacking into the late night window or into the afternoon window, which seems what they're doing with a lot of the attractive Pac-12 games. If UCLA takes a loss or two, if USC loses to Washington and Oregon, or even splits those, and it's really just kind of a matchup between maybe a low-ranked UCLA team and an unranked SC game, then I wouldn't be surprised if they just do the local People of Solid and put it at 12:30, or you might see it late in the evening as just kind of a not a throwaway game, but probably as a lesser matchup. So I'm real curious about that. As far as the Cal UCLA game goes, they'll probably just fit it wherever they can fit it. But depending on the stakes of that game, I mean, there could be stakes for that game. We don't really know yet, so I guess we'll just have to find out. But that really is just a long way of saying who knows, right? It could be anything except for 9 a.m. I think that's probably a safe bet. It's not going to be 9 a.m. We haven't been used to UCLA contending for anything in the last game of the season for a while, so that'll be a rarefied experience for us if it comes to fruition. Or it'll just be like normal, and it'll just be a depressing game at the Rose Bowl as we're trying to play out the end of the season and wait for our crappy bowl game. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm excited for that one because me and Megan will be going to that game together in a father-daughter game.
Hey guys, it's Gabe from Virginia calling back after a couple of weeks. Hope you guys are having a great Halloween. So, look, the game against Colorado, frustrating first half. It felt like one of those games where everybody was gonna, we're gonna come through and win, keep letting Colorado around, and that was frustrating. Against Arizona, my goodness, I still think at 2005 and 2011, which ended with New Heisel getting bounced after the fight in the desert. Goodness, keep the turnovers to a minimum, and I think we can win this. Have a great one. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Gabe. I really appreciate it. Really, I think you hit it right on the head with the turnovers. I have nightmares of going to Arizona and losing, and I'm really concerned that once I get to the stadium, I'm going to have PTSD. But really, I think that the Bruins can win this game if they're not a turnover machine. I feel like it's going to go that way, but you never know until you get there, right? So here's hoping they don't disappoint us. We'll have to see how it goes. Thanks for calling, though, man.
Hey, guys, it's Diego calling in. A couple of thoughts on the Colorado game and then on to Arizona. First of all, uniforms, just all world. This was the era I grew up with the Bruins, and I just love those colors and wish they would go back to them, but I can understand why they have to move ahead. But the Bevan era, terrific. Anyway, game ball to Loya, obviously one of the more artful catches you'll ever see. Graceful, beautiful catch by him on the sideline and really led to a touchdown. So game ball to him and a game ball to Latu, even though we might not see all the stats for him. He's the guy that every offensive line has to be concerned with. It kind of frees up the other guys. Overall, the defense was just incredible. Most dominating defensive performance I've seen in a while at any level, really. I mean, there was just no stopping that front line of ours. On offense, we've got some work to do, but I think we got to stay with Garbs. He's making mistakes. Everybody will. And, maybe next year if the Hunter tries to jump that route, maybe Garbs lobs it to the open guy who, if you notice that play, was running wide open down the sideline for a touchdown if Garbers had hit him instead of the intended target. So, but yeah, great offensive performance after a very spotty start. Now on to Arizona. The teams are very even, I think. Both have strengths, weaknesses. I think we're a little bit stronger on defense than they are. I think that's why we'll win. And I think the key player for us is going to be Carl Jones and how well he can spy on Fafita, because Fafita is a good passer and he's a crafty runner. So I think it'll pay dividends for us to spy him and keep him contained, make him deal with our front four and not let him escape. So Carl Jones, you're the guy to look for next game. If you play well and you do your job really well, we're going to win. So I'd say it's going to be something like Bruins, 34, Tucson, 28, somewhere in that range. All right, go Bruins. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Diego, once again for calling. And I had the same thought about Garbers on that play with Hunter. And actually later in the game, they did get Cragen kind of basically on the same sort of play where he's just wide open down the sideline. And that was one of the few big plays they had in that game, which I'm hoping they can have more of as we go through this. I think your take on Arizona is right on, spot on. So let's hope that you are also prophetic in that. But thank you once again. We always enjoy your calls. And we will talk to you next time. Okay, last call.
Hi, What's Bruin Show? This is Carrie. I love your show, and I have a question for you. First, on the Colorado game, great defensive win. I mean, I love this defense. 5 stars. I mean, that defense is so good you can spot your opponent 4 turnovers and still pull out a win, Incredible. I was curious, do you think that if the Bruins play the same as they did with Colorado, but without 3 of the turnovers, would they beat Zona? And I'm kind of following up the petition idea from one of your callers from the last show. Basically, it was to only run the ball on the first possession. And that kind of spoke to me because I think Chip Kelly has this, advanced play calling system, and he's got new players though, and sometimes I just want him to keep it simple. On those first drives, I mean, they've all been turnover prone, no matter who the quarterback is. I think that's more about the play calling than the quarterback, but if they just run it, I would much rather them 3 and out and punt than turnover. And it gives the quarterback time to read the defense, gives the receivers time to read the defense, get a vibe going, and, at maybe third possession, they're more in a place to do like a big play or some sort of more advanced passing. But curious about your thoughts. Carson Ryan, definite faller. I feel for him. I've had a concussion. I still have to deal with the consequences of that. So I hope he's all right. RJ, I feel for him. I think he's got it in him. And I hope he finds his vibe soon, because I know he really wants to help this team. And yeah, I think that's what I have to say this time around. Thank you for taking my call, and look forward to hearing you guys on your show later this week. Happy Halloween. Go Bruins!
Thank you so much, Carrie. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And yeah, I think the Bruins would have only had, one turnover against Colorado. They would have won by 30, right? Because so many of those turnovers, especially the two with Carson, were going in there to score points. So yeah, and then they had that missed field goal tragedy too. But as far as keeping it simple, in some circles, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is a rule to go by. And I think, to a degree, I think the Bruins are being a little overcomplicated, and I think that maybe they should run to pass instead of what they seem to have been wanting to do all season, which is kind of pass to run, even though they end up running the ball regardless, right? So I think, whether it's you don't run the ball for the first two series, I know that might be a tad extreme, but certainly ease into the game a little bit more by establishing your running game, because you have proven that you pretty much can run on pretty much everybody you've played, with the exception of Utah probably. So why not? That sounds like a perfectly sound strategy. And as far as concussions go, I'm right there with you. I've also had some concussions, multiple, more than 5 probably in my life, and a couple of them self-inflicted. Once I walked into an amusement park ride when I was sweeping late at night and knocked myself out for a minute and a half. So I got that going for me, and maybe that explains a lot about this podcast and me talking. But yeah, concussions are no fun. So yeah, I hope Carson gets well soon, as well as any of the other Bruins that are dinged up. But thank you so much for calling. You're becoming a fine contributor to the show, Carrie, and you are always welcome. Go Bruins indeed.
Okay, Mike, it's time for What's Bruin with You.
What's brewing with you? You ask me. What's brewing with me? Yeah. What's brewing with you? What's brewing with me? What's brewing with you?
Mikey, I know you got to get your radio gig quick, so what's brewing with you, brother?
Well, I mean, aside from having a very busy and very COVID-fearing time at the Rose Bowl, there were a lot of fucking people there, dude. I swear,
That's funny.
It was crazy. You had a lot of friends coming into town. That's a lot of people at the Rose Bowl.
You did.
I saw Bill and Sarah there. I didn't see Jake for our usual halftime.
You saw Sarah there? What was she doing there?
Susie. I saw Susie. Sorry. By the way, amazing Medusa costume. She did have. But yeah, it was just so packed. Like, so many people were like, "Oh my god, are you going to be there?" Like at halftime, met a few friends or Twitter people. But yeah, so that was a very fun weekend, and it just led into a very busy Halloween, which nothing out of the ordinary. Although I do appreciate that my oldest daughter, Violet, was going to every house and like sneaking 2 candies and going, "Hey, Dad, I got
Very
you
smart.
some." I'm like,
Very
"Bless
smart.
you, girl." But my gripe today is so I work at KQBH radio in Boyle Heights, and really cool spot because there's also a fantastic pizza place, which is actually a really cool sports bar. But the venue above is called the Paramount, and it's a fantastic venue. But I was a little irked by what I saw last week. They have one of those chalkboard stands outside, and it said, "Oh, we play Lakers and Dodgers and Chargers and Trojans, and that was about it. I'm like, what? We're the Bruins. A few days later, I come out and they have the marquee, which is beautiful. It said, oh no, this was actually 2 weeks ago, because the Dodgers were actually still in the playoffs, but they didn't because they sucked.
So sad.
The marquee on one side said "Go Dodgers," the other side said "Go Trojans." I'm like, what? Where's the Bruin love? I can almost guarantee that there were more Bruins in East LA than Trojan fans, and it's a scientific fact, which I wrote about at the beginning of the season, how UCLA is one of the top 20 most popular brands in college football, where the Trojans are not so much. So nothing against the Paramount. I love it. It is a fantastic venue, but
I think you should stop shopping there, Mike.
I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed.
I see that.
Jake, what's brewing with you?
Nothing. I'm getting ready for the road trip. I'm looking forward to going out there to see you and Jamaal, and I'm hoping that we come back with the Bruin victory. And after that, I'm going to Vegas next week for the league meeting for the National Public Safety Football League. So I'm a busy boy, and I'm just looking forward to this traveling, and we'll see how it goes. And then onward to the holiday season. So the football season for college football is always very fun, but also very exhausting. And I'm feeling that exhaustion kind of kicking in at this point, but I'm just pushing through and hoping we get to the end with some fun stuff to cheer for. So that's where I'm at, Mikey.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's been tough so far, but now, damn, dude. We have basketball season coming up.
Oh,
we have Thanksgiving. We have Christmas. We have New Year's. We have Mummers in Philadelphia. I'm not giving away future plans. I'm just saying, but this is a great time of year. My favorite time of year is fall. Winter is great, but god damn, it is so tiring. I feel you, Jake. I feel you.
Oh my gosh! And I just happy surprise, Mike. I just fired up the scoreboard for the NBA, and the Lakers have come back from being down by 17 in the first quarter, and now they're leading the Clippers by like 7 points or 9 points with like 2 minutes left. I hope they don't blow this goddamn game. But LeBron dropped 32. Kawhi had like 30 points in the first quarter. Hey, that's a happy surprise. It's only good.
Way to step up, LeBron.
I hope I just didn't jinx them.
Nah, turn it off. Turn it off until
I'm going to put the score away. So if this comes out and they lost, I might have to retcon this, but we'll see. Mikey, have fun at your gig with KQBR and
KQBH, Jake.
God damn it. KQBH. I'm sorry, Mike.
KQ Boyle Heights. There you go.
Oh,
all right. I know, right? I caught that a year in. I was like, oh, I get it.
Now I get it. My apologies, Mike. Go KQBH and until we're going to do a post game. It might be me and Jamaal. It might be me, Jamaal, and Mike. It might just be me. But we'll do it sometime in the early hours of Saturday morning or Sunday, and it might come to you sometime like by Sunday afternoon. I'm not sure. It depends on my travel schedule, but we'll get that to you. And please follow, subscribe to the show, and support us. And we love you all. And until next time, go Bruins and Arizona. You know what you can do.
Arizona can go fuck themselves.
See you later, Mikey.
Later, Jake. Good night.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's gotta be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, brah, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.